Welcome back to Rare CoinX PRO. Today we are exploring 4 Lincoln Wheat Pennies that together span some of the most dramatic and historically significant years in American numismatic history, the mid to late 1940s, when the United States was emerging from World War II, rebuilding its economy, and producing cents in the billions that now sit quietly in coin jars, old albums, and forgotten envelopes across the country. Our 4 coins today are the 1944 D, the 1945 no mint mark, the 1946 D, and the 1948 no mint mark, and every one of them carries a story, a composition detail, and a collector value that makes it far more interesting than its tiny 1-cent face value suggests. Stay with us all the way through because every single section of today's video has something new and genuinely exciting to reveal. Let's start with our first coin, the 1944 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. The 1944 D Lincoln Wheat Penny occupies a truly extraordinary place in American numismatic history, one that is defined not just by what it is, but by what it replaced and what it accidentally became. To understand the 1944 D fully, you need to go back 1 year to 1943, when the United States Mint made one of its most dramatic and controversial decisions in decades. With copper desperately needed for the war effort, for shell casings, electrical wiring, and military equipment, the Mint switched the Lincoln cent from its traditional copper composition to zinc-coated steel. The result was the famous 1943 steel penny, immediately disliked by the public for its silvery color, its tendency to rust, and its habit of being confused with dimes in poor lighting. By 1944, copper supplies had improved enough for the Mint to return to a copper-based cent. But here is where the story becomes genuinely fascinating. The 1944 cent is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, technically a brass alloy rather than traditional bronze, because the source metal was largely derived from melted World War II artillery shell casings mixed into cent planchet stock. Every 1944 D Lincoln cent you hold was literally made from the brass of spent military ammunition, a direct and physical connection to the war effort that makes these coins uniquely historically resonant. Denver struck 430,578,000 coins carrying the D Mint mark in 1944. And then there is the error story that makes certain 1944 D coins among the most valuable wheat pennies ever produced. One of the rarest and most intriguing U.S. coins is the 1944 D Steel Lincoln Wheat Cent. A small number of zinc-coated steel planchets left over from 1943 were accidentally used during the 1944 transition, producing steel cents bearing the 1944 date. Only 7 examples with the D Mint mark are known to exist. Additionally, some of the 1944 coins produced in Denver were made with a die that had an S from the San Francisco Mint. On those error coins the S was cleared out and AD was placed on top, but traces of the original S Mint mark can still be seen, creating the famous 1944 D/S over Mint mark variety. In terms of condition, the standard 1944 D Wheat Penny in circulated grade is common and affordable. The enormous mintage means worn examples are easy to find. But in uncirculated mint state grades, especially with original red copper color, the coin becomes meaningfully more desirable and valuable. The 1944 D Lincoln Wheat Penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, no tin, at a weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19 millimeters with a plain edge. The obverse features Victor David Brenner's iconic right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln with "In God We Trust" above, Liberty to the left, and the date 1944 to the right. The D Mint mark appears below the date indicating Denver production. The reverse carries the classic wheat design, 2 stalks of wheat framing 1 cent and United States of America with the motto E Pluribus Unum. 4 color grading, 3 designations apply: red, RD, indicating 95% or more original copper brilliance, red-brown, RB, for partial toning, and brown, BN, for fully oxidized examples. Red coins always command the highest premiums, and a fully red 1944 D Wheat Penny in gem uncirculated condition is a genuinely beautiful and rewarding collector piece. The collector demand for the 1944 D Wheat Penny is consistently strong and driven by the coin's powerful wartime narrative. The The 1944 Wheat Penny is a key date in coin collecting due to its history and connection to World War II, and this appeal to collectors, known as numismatic value, adds meaningful premium above the pure metal value. Collectors building complete Lincoln cent date and mint mark sets always need the 1944 D, and the shell casing composition story gives every example an irresistible historical dimension that resonates far beyond the numismatic community. Rare coins, the steel cent variety and the D/S over mint mark, generate enormous collector excitement whenever they surface. The auction record for a 1944 steel cent from the Denver Mint has sold for $115,000, and a 1944 steel cent set a record of $408,000 in 2021. Standard circulated examples of the 1944 D are worth $30,000 to $80,000 in everyday grades. In uncirculated condition, MS 63RD examples trade for approximately $115,000, MS 65RD for $180,000, MS 66RD for $400,000, and MS 67RD for around $680,000. The 1944 D/S over mint mark variety in MS 66RD has sold for close to $990,000 at auction. The 1944 D steel cent with just 7 known examples is essentially priceless in the sense that it trades at levels determined by the passion of competing specialist bidders. First, always check the composition of any 1944 D you encounter with a magnet. A genuine standard 1944 D should show no magnetic response, being 95% copper. If your 1944 D sticks to a magnet, you may have the extraordinarily rare steel cent variety, and you should immediately have it professionally authenticated. Second, examine the mint mark carefully under magnification. Look for any trace of an underlying S beneath the D, which would identify the valuable over mint mark variety. Third, always assess color carefully. A bright, fully red 1944 D is worth dramatically more than a brown-toned example of the same technical grade. Fourth, never clean your coins. Cleaning permanently destroys original surfaces and dramatically reduces collector value. And fifth, consider professional certification by PCGS or NGC for any mint state example. A certified coin in a sealed slab commands far stronger prices and gives buyers total confidence in authenticity and grade. Now let's move on to our second coin, the 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny, no mint mark. The 1945 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny carries one of the most emotionally powerful dates in all of American numismatic history. 1945 was the year World War II ended, victory in Europe came in May, and victory over Japan followed in August, and the pennies struck in Philadelphia that year were produced during the final months of the most devastating conflict in human history. Every 1945 Philadelphia cent is in a very real sense a coin of victory, struck while American soldiers were still fighting and finished in a nation that emerged from the war as the most powerful country on earth. That historical weight gives the 1945 no mint mark penny a narrative resonance that goes far beyond any purely numismatic consideration. The Philadelphia Mint struck 1,040,515,000 no mint mark pennies in 1945, over 1 billion coins, making the 1945 no mint mark penny one of the most abundant dates in the entire Wheat Penny series. This enormous production reflects both the wartime economy's appetite for small change and the extraordinary manufacturing capacity that the Philadelphia Mint had built up through the war years. From 1944 through 1946, the U.S. Mint recycled brass from spent military ammunition shell casings to make Lincoln cents. The alloy is 95% copper and 5% zinc, no tin, which makes it technically brass rather than traditional bronze. So, like the 1944 D, your 1945 Philadelphia cent is quite literally made from the metal of wartime ammunition, connecting it to the conflict that defined an entire generation. In terms of condition, the 1945 no mint mark penny in circulated grade is very common and inexpensive. But the coin's true collector excitement lies at the very top of the grading scale. The value of a 1945 Wheat Penny ranges from 5 cents for circulated examples to over $20,000 for gem uncirculated specimens graded MS 67+ or higher with full red color. The 1945 no-mint mark penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, shell case composition, with a weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19 millimeters. The obverse carries Victor David Brenner's Lincoln portrait, unchanged since 1909, with no mint mark below the date, identifying Philadelphia production. The reverse shows the classic wheat stalks design that gave the series its beloved nickname. The color designation system applies fully to the 1945 coin. Uncirculated examples in MS-63RD grade are worth $6 to $10, while MS-65RD examples range from $16 to $38 depending on grade. The color designation, red, red-brown, or brown, dramatically affects value in uncirculated grades, with red coins worth 2 to 5 times more than brown coins of the same technical grade. The 1945 penny is common by every measure, over 1 billion were struck, but at the very top of the grading scale, where coins retain their full original red copper luster for over 80 years, the 1945 wheat penny becomes genuinely scarce and surprisingly valuable. The VJ Day and wartime context gives this coin broad appeal far beyond the standard numismatic audience. Anyone with a family connection to World War II finds it personally resonant, and that emotional dimension sustains collector interest across every generation. Victory in World War II enhances collector appeal far beyond what the high mintage would suggest. Errors on the 1945 penny also attract meaningful collector attention. Lamination errors, caused by impurities in the recycled shell case metal, appear more frequently on 1944 to 1946 cents than on surrounding years, and these lamination varieties are actively sought by error collectors who appreciate their direct material connection to the wartime manufacturing process. Standard circulated 1945 Philadelphia pennies are worth $44,000 to $78,000 in worn condition. In mint state, an MS-63RD is worth $116,000 to $160,000 and an MS-65RD reaches $210,000 to $380,000. MS-67 plus examples with full red color represent the pinnacle, and a high-grade 1945 SMS-68RD set a benchmark selling for $660,000 at Heritage Auctions in January 2026, demonstrating what top-tier gem examples of this wartime series can achieve. For the Philadelphia no mint mark, the finest known examples in MS-67RD territory command prices well into the hundreds and occasionally into the low thousands of dollars at certified auction. First, examine your 1945 no mint mark penny carefully for lamination errors on the surface, particularly on the reverse. These peeling or bubbling surface flaws are more common on shell case composition scents and can add meaningful value to an otherwise ordinary example. Second, look carefully at Lincoln's cheekbone and the hair detail above the ear. If these high points show no wear at all, your coin may be uncirculated and worth having professionally graded. Third, always assess color in natural daylight or under a single directional lamp. Artificial overhead light can mask or exaggerate the true copper color of a wheat penny surface. Fourth, store your best examples in acid-free holders away from humidity. The shell case brass alloy of 1945 cents can tone unpredictably when exposed to atmospheric pollutants. And fifth, when building a Lincoln cent collection, always seek the 1945 Philadelphia coin in the highest red grade you can afford. The historical narrative of the victory year combined with full original copper color makes this one of the most satisfying and emotionally resonant pieces in the entire wheat penny series. Next, let's take a look at our third coin, the 1946 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny. The 1946 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny arrives at a pivotal moment in American history and in the material history of the Lincoln cent series itself. By 1946, the war was over and America was transitioning rapidly from a wartime economy to peacetime prosperity. Soldiers were returning home, factories were converting back to civilian production, and the mood of the nation was one of optimism, relief, and the energy of a new beginning. The coins struck in Denver in 1946 carry that post-war energy within their date, and they occupy a specific and historically interesting position within the Lincoln cent series. The 1946 D was the last year of the shell case brass composition for Lincoln cents struck at Denver. From 1944 through 1946, the mint had been using recycled military brass from spent shell casings, 95% copper and 5% zinc with no tin, and 1946 was the final year of that composition before the mint returned to traditional bronze in 1947. This means the 1946 D is the last Denver-minted wheat penny to carry the physical legacy of the war effort in its very metal, and that compositional closure gives it a specific historical significance as a final chapter coin within the shell case era. Denver produced 315,690,000 pennies with the D mint mark in 1946, representing approximately 21% of total 1946 production. Philadelphia produced the largest share at 65.9% of total output, making the Denver issue the middle production variety of the three mints that year. In circulated grades, the 1946 D is common and accessible, but in gem uncirculated condition with original red color, it becomes a genuinely rewarding collector target. The 1946 D also offers interesting variety collecting opportunities for the specialist. Repunched mint mark varieties, where the D mint mark was stamped more than once at slightly different positions, leaving a visible secondary impression, are known for this date and attract dedicated variety collectors who enjoy the microdetective work of identifying these subtle die characteristics under magnification. The 1946 D Lincoln Wheat Penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, the shell case brass alloy for the final year, with a weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19 millimeters. The D mint mark appears below the date on the obverse, identifying Denver production. The Victor David Brenner Lincoln portrait on the obverse and the classic wheat stalk reverse are unchanged from their original 1909 designs, presenting the same dignified and timeless imagery that had graced the American 1-cent coin for 37 years by 1946. The color grading system applies fully. Red coins at 95% or more original copper brilliance command the highest premiums, red-brown examples with partial toning command intermediate values, and fully brown coins represent base values within each grade level. A bright, fully red 1946 D in gem uncirculated condition is a beautiful coin that rewards careful searching and patient acquisition. The collector demand for the 1946 D wheat penny is consistent and positive, driven by collectors building complete Lincoln cent sets, who always need the 1946 D as part of their date and mint mark run, and by collectors who specifically appreciate the shell case composition era of 1944 to 1946. The 1946 D as the final Denver example of the shell case period gives it a natural closing chapter appeal that resonates with collectors who think thematically about their collections. Price differences in the 1946 series stem from three factors: original mintage, survival rate, and collector demand. In circulated condition coins are worth pennies, but in MS67RD the top examples reach $600, reflecting the classic high mintage, low survival paradox that applies to all wartime wheat pennies. The repunched mint mark varieties for this date add a specialist dimension that gives variety collectors additional reason to seek out and carefully examine 1946 D examples. Standard circulated examples of the 1946 D are worth $25,000 to $40,000 in everyday grades. Uncirculated examples in MS63RD trade for approximately $53,000 to $80,000 and MS65RD examples command between $120,000 and $250,000 depending on the sharpness of the strike and the quality of the surfaces. At the very top of the condition spectrum, an MS67RD 1946 D can reach $600,000 or more at certified auction. Repunched mint mark varieties with strong, easily visible secondary impressions command premiums of $880,000 to $1,500,000 above standard values depending on the strength of the variety and the overall grade of the coin. A record auction sale of $1,680,000 for a top-grade San Francisco example demonstrates what the finest known 1946 wheat pennies can achieve in the right auction environment. Here are our best tips for the 1946 D wheat penny. First, examine the D mint mark carefully under magnification for any sign of repunching. A secondary D impression visible slightly above, below, or to the side of the primary impression identifies a repunched mint mark variety that commands a meaningful premium among specialist collectors. Second, always assess the wheat lines on the reverse carefully as a condition indicator. In a high-grade uncirculated example, the individual lines within each wheat stalk should be fully separated and sharply defined, and any merging or flattening of these lines tells you the coin has experienced some degree of wear. Third, check Lincoln's cheekbone, the hair detail above the ear, and the bow tie at the base of the portrait. These are the three primary wear points on the obverse of any Lincoln cent, and all three should show absolutely no wear in a genuine uncirculated example. Fourth, consider building the complete shell case composition trio, 1944D, 1945, and 1946D, as a focused and historically eloquent mini-collection that tells the complete story of the wartime brass alloy from its introduction to its final year. And fifth, always store your finest examples in PCGS or NGC certified holders. The protection and authentication that professional certification provides is especially valuable for mint state examples worth meaningful sums. And now, let's take a look at our fourth and final coin, the 1948 Lincoln Wheat Penny, no mint mark. The 1948 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny arrives at a moment of genuine American post-war confidence and prosperity, and it brings with it a return to the traditional Lincoln cent composition that collectors and the public alike preferred over the wartime shell case brass of the preceding years. By 1948, the United States had fully transitioned back to its peacetime identity. The economy was booming, housing construction was surging, and America was settling into the long post-war prosperity that would define the late 1940s and the 1950s. The cents produced in Philadelphia in 1948 reflect that settled, confident character, solidly and consistently produced in large numbers for a nation that was getting on with the business of living well. The Philadelphia Mint produced 317,570,000 wheat pennies in 1948, making this the most common variety of the year and the most common 1948 Lincoln cent overall. This production of over 317 million coins means that circulated examples are very readily available, but it also means that the vast majority of those coins went into everyday use and were spent, saved, and circulated for decades before most of them toned and wore in the manner typical of circulated copper. All 1948 Lincoln wheat cents were struck from a bronze alloy consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the standard composition that had been used for most U.S. cents from 1909. After the wartime shell case brass years of 1944 to 1946, 1948 represents the return to proper traditional bronze, and that compositional normalization gives the coin a settled and authentic character that collectors appreciate. The variety landscape for the 1948 no mint mark penny is genuinely exciting for specialists. A double die obverse variety exists for the 1948 Philadelphia cent. Look for distinct doubling on Liberty and the date 1948 using at least 5x magnification. True double dies show the doubling across multiple letters or numbers consistently, appearing as a clear second image slightly offset from the primary. The 1948 no mint mark penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, traditional bronze composition, at a weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19 millimeters with a plain edge. The return to traditional bronze after the shell case years gives the 1948 cent a slightly different toning character over time, bronze containing tin tones more gracefully and consistently than the shell case brass, and well-preserved 1948 examples in original red condition have a warm, deep copper color that many collectors find particularly beautiful. The Philadelphia issue typically shows strong strike quality. Philadelphia pennies from 1948 typically have strong strikes with sharp wheat stalks and clear Lincoln details, and collectors particularly value examples that retain their original bright red copper color rather than toning to brown. The color designation system applies fully. Red examples command the highest premiums, with the difference between a red and a brown example of the same MS-65 grade potentially amounting to hundreds of dollars at the premium end of the market. The collector demand for the 1948 no mint mark Lincoln cent is consistent and positive across multiple collecting communities. Date and mint mark set builders always need the 1948 Philadelphia issue, and that foundational demand keeps the coin reliably present in the collector market. Variety collectors seek the doubled die obverse examples, and the specialist premium for a clearly doubled 1948 Philadelphia cent in circulated or uncirculated grades is meaningful and well established. Exceptional examples in MS-67 grade with full red color have sold for $1,000 to $3,000 at major auctions, and according to PCGS, a pristine MS-67 Plus RD specimen fetched over $6,000 at heritage auctions. The 1948 coin also appeals to era collectors, those who build themed collections around the post-war years of American history. Having the 1948 cent in pristine original red condition as a representative of the first full year of post-war bronze composition is a genuinely satisfying collecting goal that combines historical narrative with numismatic quality in a deeply rewarding way. The 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny from Philadelphia typically sells for $22,000 to $27,000 in circulated condition and $33,000 to $50,000 in lower uncirculated grades. The real value emerges in gem condition with original red color. An MS-65 RD example might sell for $90,000 to $190,000, while an MS-67 Plus specimen commands thousands of dollars. A pristine MS-67 example was auctioned for $470,000, highlighting the significant worth of this date in superb condition. For the doubled die obverse variety, a 1948D with prominent doubling on Liberty sold for $580,000 in MS-63 condition at a 2022 auction, and lower grade examples with visible doubling typically sell between $800,000 and $1 million. Demonstrating the meaningful premium that genuine die varieties command even in circulated grades. Here are our most important tips for the 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny. First, examine the letters of Liberty and the digits of the date 1948 carefully under at least 5 times magnification, looking specifically for a doubled die variety. True doubling appears as a clear second image consistently across multiple letters. If you see doubling on only one letter, it is likely post-mint damage rather than a genuine double die. Second, assess the color of your coin's surfaces under good natural lighting. The traditional bronze of the 1948 cent develops a distinctive and beautiful warm red-brown patina with age, and a coin that retains significant original red color after nearly 8 decades is a genuinely premium example worth having professionally graded. Third, examine the wheat lines on the reverse for sharpness. The 1948 Philadelphia cents typically show strong strike quality, and fully separated, sharply defined wheat lines are the hallmark of a well-struck, high-grade specimen. Fourth, never clean your 1948 penny under any circumstances. Cleaning permanently destroys the natural surface character of a bronze coin and reduces its value dramatically, and experienced collectors can always identify a cleaned coin regardless of how gently it was treated. And fifth, for any 1948 no-mint mark example that appears to be in mint state condition with significant original red color, the investment in professional PCGS or NGC certification is strongly recommended. A certified MS-65 RD or above commands prices that make the certification cost entirely worthwhile. As we have seen today, these 4 Lincoln wheat pennies carry stories that go far beyond their modest 1-cent face value. The 1944 D takes us to the extraordinary moment when American pennies were literally made from the brass of wartime shell casings, and hides within its production run some of the most valuable era coins in the entire Lincoln cent series. The 1945 no-mint mark Philadelphia cent is a coin of victory, struck during the final year of World War II in quantities exceeding 1 billion pieces, carrying the shell case composition of the war effort in metal that was itself once ammunition. The 1946 D brings us the final Denver-minted chapter of the shell case era, the last post-war breath of wartime metal before the Lincoln cent returned to traditional bronze, with its own variety collecting dimension for the most specialist collectors. and the 1948 no-mint mark Philadelphia penny marks the return to traditional bronze composition in a year of genuine American post-war confidence, hiding a double-die variety that rewards careful examination and commanding prices in gem condition that will surprise anyone who still thinks of wheat pennies as merely old pocket change. Whether you're just beginning your coin collecting journey or you've been collecting for years, it's always worth checking your spare change and your family's old coin collections because you never know when you might discover a hidden treasure. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another exciting coin video from Rare CoinX PRO. Share this video with your fellow collectors and we'll see you in the next one. Happy collecting!